Hello, everybody. This is Carol Maletta. Welcome to the Parenting 411 podcast, where we share information parents need from sources they can trust. Hello, and welcome to the Parenting 411 podcast. Today, we have the privilege of speaking with Kara Czerniak, an accomplished author, educator, and the innovative mind behind the Kinder Karate method. Recognizing a gap in the martial arts offerings for preschool and pre-K children, Kara fused her extensive knowledge in psychology, over 2 decades of martial arts experience, and her personal journey as the mother of 3 to design a unique program tailored for young minds. Operating out of 4 locations in the Pittsburgh area, the Kinder Karate method not only imparts martial arts training, but delves deep into character development, integrating abstract concepts and even sign language. Kara's mission goes beyond traditional education, offering young children opportunities to grow, learn, and thrive. She is also working on a passion project, and that is helping moms of teen daughters reconnect and build solid bonds to last through adulthood. So let's dive into her journey, the foundation of Kinder Karate, and the myriad ways it can benefit our children. So welcome to the show, Kara.
Thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Awesome. Hope your day has been going well.
It has. We're in Pittsburgh, so trying to get those last little warm days out there and enjoy them as much as we can.
Yes. Well, I'm sure many parents out there are trying to do that as well, especially on the weekends after when there's no school, trying to make the most of the warm weather that we have because, winter kind of changes things, especially in Pittsburgh.
Yes. We got about 6 to 8 months of it. So get that last outdoor time in there. So.
Right. So, I'm glad that we're going to be talking about karate. And I know that, many parents have a concern, though, about martial arts. They worry about it fostering aggression. And so how about parents that wonder, would learning karate through the Kinder Karate program make their children act out or be more aggressive?
Well, in my opinion, the thought that taking karate will make my child aggressive is a myth, because I believe that your child either has or doesn't have aggressive tendencies to start with. And if they don't have aggressive tendencies, taking something like a martial arts, just like football, is not going to make your child aggressive. So we can bring out those tendencies. But even if you have a child who tends to be aggressive, martial arts can actually do the opposite, which is give them structure. And if they have a good relationship with their instructor or their coach, it can give them more discipline for that aggression and channel it into more positive means. So I find when parents come to me, they're usually on one of 2 ends. Either they have a child who's more on the shy, withdrawn side that they want to bring out of their shell, or the other side is they have all this excess energy, or maybe, like you said, a little bit on the aggressive side, and they need a channel for that. They need something where they can focus that and turn that into positives. So I don't believe that martial arts has the magic to make a child aggressive, but I think that for children who are aggressive, it can be a real game changer because it does give them that structure.
And I can say that I've seen that. I mean, my own children, they weren't aggressive, but just seeing children in the center when we took, where my sons took Taekwondo, I felt that everything that you said in terms of being able to give them a discipline for how to channel in their energies, and just even the pride that comes with and the confidence that comes with learning all of the forms and, earning your belt, and just, and I think you're going to talk about this in character development, understanding when it's appropriate. You have these abilities, you have this knowledge, but there's a time and place for it, right? And
Exactly.
so now, given your expertise in positive psychology and brain development, how did those areas influence how you shaped the kinder care curriculum?
So my background in positive psychology and just my training, I've trained in neurolinguistic programming and child development, brain development. They're really more than an influence. They're the foundations of the whole kinder karate program. With other martial arts programs, and not just martial arts programs, but there's dance, cheer, sports, anything dealing with kids, their first priority is the technique. And so when it came to this program, the brain training and the outcomes, those are my first priority. So martial arts is just the vehicle that I use to deliver what I'm really trying to impart to the kids. And I've used the same process with wrestling. I used to be a youth assistant wrestling coach when my boys were little, and even with dance, it's the process that works. And I found like anything that I taught kids using this process had a greater outcome. And I think it works so well because I focus specifically on the way that 3 to 6-year-olds really need to learn. And I give them that environment that's adapted to their needs. So instead of just trying to teach them what I'm teaching younger kids, and I say, I don't mold the martial art, I don't mold the kid to the martial art, I mold the martial art or the lessons to the kids. And I think that's why it's so much different than other programs, but also so successful.
And I can imagine your knowledge of brain development, positive psychology, as you said, combined with your experience as a mom, also factors into how you run the kinder karate program. How did your motherhood factor into that?
A lot. So having, I had 2 boys and a daughter. And so we have been through every sport and activity that you could think of on both ends. My daughter did sports and dance, and my sons did a few different sports. And there were so many times as a parent that I felt lost or out of the loop, or I didn't know what was going on, or I was concerned about how my kids were being handled. The boys specifically, we had sports where they were screamed at or even just roughly handled by their coaches. And that had real concern for me. So this experience informed the structure of my program in a few different ways. The first was that I wanted my students to feel a connection with me, and I wanted parents to feel in the loop and build their trust. So I probably over communicate with them, but I never want them to feel like they're not a part of what's going on. And so building with my students, building that connection, I use a variety of techniques, but humor is one of them. We laugh a lot, and I know if I can get them laughing and enjoying themselves, then they feel connected to me. The second is my teaching environment's always positive. So I use a method I call the 3 C's, and that's compliment, correction, compliment. So instead of telling them what I don't want, the first thing I do is I say, okay, you're doing this well, and now we need to add this. And then once they add that, then I give them another compliment. Instead of, if it's kind of like if I say to you, don't think of a purple elephant. And the first thing that happens is purple elephant, right? So if you say to especially any child, but a very young child, don't drop your hands, don't drop your hands, don't drop their hands. That's what they hear. And I never yell. So yelling puts kids into this primal state where when we're talking about brain development, the parts of our brain, the fight or flight part of our brain, the amygdala, when you yell, that lights up. And when the amygdala lights up, the prefrontal cortex, which is the learning and planning part of our brain, it becomes unavailable. So yelling just becomes counterproductive. And that was something I never wanted to do, which was yell, which I experienced a lot, with my boys in wrestling and in baseball and in soccer, and just a lot of yelling. So that was a big part of when I was building the program. I said, that's just not going to happen. The structure of my program is also influenced by that. So there's sports that even for very, very young kids, they take over your life. You have 4 or 5 days of practice and then game days. So my kinder karate is 1 day a week. The classes are 30 minutes. It's very easy to fit into a schedule, and it's easy to fit in with other sports, because I'm not anti other sports. I love sports. I'm a Pittsburgh girl, right? We love our football and our hockey and everything, but I feel that there should be space for more than just one thing. And when you give your life over to that becomes very hard and hard on your kids. There's a lot of burnout. I also take parents and children through my process slowly. So when we would start with a sport with my children, sometimes you have to invest all of that money in equipment up front, and you don't even know, is my son going to like this? Is he going to stick with it?
Right.
And so there's all of that uncertainty. So when I put my program together, we have trial programs that allow them to test us out for a few classes first, and also allows me to see if they're a good fit, because I really try to protect my classes and make sure that not only is the child a good fit, but the parents are a good fit. Because I really want an involved parent, and a parent who really gets what I'm doing beyond the physical, and they understand all the benefits that can come from that. So those are the main things. And I would say that, the very last thing is just that the kids enjoy what they're doing, because if they don't, it just, all of the good stuff goes away. All of the learning goes away. And so I really try to make sure that it's enjoyable for the kids as well. I hide a lot of things in the fun. And that's also a big part of the success, is the kids, they're learning, but it doesn't sometimes feel like
it.
Yeah.
And really what you described are really desirable and favorable elements that you'd like to see in most any program that children are going to participate in. Something that's really affirming, something that really does teach them valuable life skills, frankly. And so I wonder what else might distinguish your program from other martial arts programs specifically that are designed for kids.
We'll be right back after this.
If you're looking to reach a massive audience of parents and caregivers, then look no further than ProPix by the Parenting 411, the ultimate marketing program designed to skyrocket your brand to new heights. With ProPix, we've created 3 incredible packages to suit your marketing needs and budget. So let's take a look. First up is our social starter package. You'll receive a stunning graphic promo piece, plus we'll also feature your brand on the Parenting 411 Instagram page. It's the perfect way to make a memorable first impression and get parents buzzing about your business. Now, if you're ready to level up, our Parenting Pro package is where it's at. You'll enjoy all the benefits of the Social Starter package, plus more awesome benefits, including exposure on the Parenting 411 podcast, which reaches parents in more than 22 countries each week. But wait, there's more. For those seeking the pinnacle of marketing power, our Elite Exposure package is the way to go. You'll get even more exposure across our platform, including thousands of followers and connections on LinkedIn. Get ready to dominate the airwaves and establish yourself as the go-to resource for families everywhere. Take advantage of ProPix by the Parenting 411 today and unlock unparalleled marketing opportunities for your business. But I should tell you that prices are set to increase on November 1st, so act now. ProPix by the Parenting 411 is your passport to the hearts and minds of parents. Visit ProPixbyP411.com. Join us today and watch the magic happen.
And we're back with the Parenting 411.
Okay, so before I start, I want to give a disclaimer that anything I'm about to say does not apply to all martial arts,
Sure.
but it's common, the common things that I find. Before we switched over what we were doing with Kinder Karate, it's been 11 years now, going on 12 years. And before that, we were a traditional martial arts school. We did traditional Olympic style Taekwondo. So a lot of these things I'm about to say we were guilty of. Okay, so let me put that out there before I get any kind of bite back at me. So it stands apart in so many ways, but mainly it's these. Number one is we don't mix age groups. So typically in martial arts, they will have a kids class and then they will have an adult class. And the kids class can be mixed ages from anywhere from 5 to 14. And so for me, my classes are broken down by 2-year age increments until they reach age 11. So I do 3 to 4, and then I have 5 to 6-year-old classes. Then my husband takes over with 7 and 8-year-olds, 9 and 10-year-olds. 11 to 14, we allow that age group to span to be a little higher, and then 15-year-old goes into the adult class. We use something called a circular curriculum. In martial arts, a lot of them are still a linear curriculum, which means you need to learn this technique before you learn this one. And there's a lot of problems in that when your classes start to grow. So a circular curriculum means that at any given time you come in, we are involved in, I will call it a cycle. We're involved in, for right now, we're doing our sidekick cycle. So if you would come into the middle of the sidekick cycle, everybody's working on the same techniques regardless of their belts. Once that cycle is over, even if you came in the middle, you might be a little bit behind, but you'll get caught up. And by the time we're on the next cycle, everybody is back at ground zero, where usually, because kinder karate lasts about 1.5 to 2 years usually, everybody's seeing it for the first time again. And even if they're not, they don't remember 2 years ago, because they might have been 3 and now they're 5. So what that allows us to do is because everybody is training the same thing, you don't have kids who are sitting out part of the class. So in a traditional class, if you have yellow belts and blue belts, well, the yellow belts don't know what the blue belts are doing. So they're sitting. And your child, even though it's an hour class, the physical part of that class, you're going to be lucky if it's 30 minutes. So parents don't usually know there's an alternative. The structure of my classes too, being 30 minutes 1 day a week. When I first tested kinder karate out in 2012, I did a 2-day a week, and my classes were 45 minutes. But what I found was that the extra 15 minutes, their brains were full, and it became sort of like herding cats at the end. And I found I was able to accomplish everything in 30 minutes, and it was just a good amount. And then when I did 2 days a week, the second day got really redundant because it wasn't enough time for them, I say, for the information to marinate in their brain, right? To really encapsulate that information. So I just found that 1 day a week really works like best for our programs. And that's a concern sometimes of parents. But when I explain to them that a lot of schools have to do multiple days a week because they can't get through everything because of the mixed age groups. And when your children are sitting, they're not getting all of that attention. So my classes, it's very focused on that technique. So we're all working on the same thing. And then the last thing I would say is that the way that I teach is completely different. Again, based on my training, most martial arts instructors, most, not all, don't have any experience with education or learning styles or teaching styles, or even experience with kids outside of being on their mats. So my experience before this was actually in teaching adults, adult learning theory. And I was I'll tell that story probably later at some point, but I was the head of a GED program, and I had to really figure it out quickly how to break things down. So I use techniques in my process that are designed to keep kids involved in the learning process. I'm not standing there lecturing and they're listening, because that would go south really quickly with their attention spans. So I use things called verbal operants, which there are 6 different techniques designed to keep them involved. And there's something, for instance, called an intraverbal. So if I'm teaching a sidekick, instead of me saying, this is a sidekick and this is what you do, and this is what, I will demonstrate it, but I'll say, okay, we're doing a kick, and our foot goes this way. It's not the front, it's not the back, it's the and they'll finish my sentence. And that's called an intraverbal. So I like to say it's sort of like the ocean. The waves come in and they go out. And so the energy comes from me to them and back to me. And they're always listening and they're always participating. So that's probably the biggest difference. And I would say the hardest thing when I'm trying to train my assistants for them to pick up, it's natural for me now, but it's not natural for somebody when they're starting. And so, but once they get that, the class is just, it's so changed.
Well, I definitely do see that you do things a lot differently from some of the other martial arts programs that I've seen, whether it's my son's programs or other ones in our area. So I really appreciate that. And you mentioned something really important, and that is that you impart to your trainers, your other instructors, important concepts about engaging and teaching children and how they learn and all of that, as opposed to the focus on the expertise. I mean, of course, the expertise is there, but to teach children, you really do need to understand a bit about how they acquire skills and developmentally their age and stage as well, to really make it engaging and something that they can really learn from. So now I know that children have a lot of programs that they could participate in, sports programs, music and the arts and all of those sorts of things. So how do you feel that kinder karate stands, in comparison to those in terms of the developmental benefits for children?
Well, depending on what parents are looking for, if they're looking for just an energy burn, just something where kids are just running off that energy and they're sweaty and they're tired when they come home, then I say that other sports are probably the way they should go. But for parents who want more for their kids, I feel that kinder karate offers a superior experience. And that's, again, because of the foundations in brain development. So for instance, one of the biggest requests that I get from parents are, my child needs to learn more focus. My son needs to learn to sit still. And I say that that's like a muscle that needs to be worked just as much as a physical muscle. Absolutely. And so because of what we do and like the structure of it, it works so much better than just something where they're running around and, again, focusing on technique rather than what's underneath it. So when we're training in my classes, I actually will focus on I call it the skill, the drill, and the thrill. So we're moving and then we get static and we're sitting for less than a couple minutes. But that sitting is just as important as the moving, because they need to learn to work. I call it the focus muscle. You have to work the focus muscle. They got to practice sitting still, just like they practice their kicks and their running. And through this, they get better at it and they can focus for longer periods of time. So I guess what I'm really trying to say is I'm intentional with the concepts. And sports for these kids' age group, they're run mostly by volunteer parents. And I always say, like, bless their heart, because they give their time and they're really passionate about what they do. But again, they're doing the best they can. They don't have the training, and it makes a huge difference. So they're doing the best they can, but it really can't compare to when you're intentionally working those concepts. The concepts, I call them the big four, and that's focus, active listening, impulse control, and then the biggest one is confidence. And even martial arts, there's so many programs and they say they address these issues, but they can't really tell you how. They say you're going to learn focus and discipline. But if a parent gets really into the nitty gritty and says, well, how do you teach that? And it's like, well, by the time that you spend here, and, they can't really give you specifics, but any activity you stick with for long enough will teach you things like perseverance and hopefully respect for, your coach. But if you ask me, well, how do you teach active listening? Then I could tell you, well, one of the things I say to my students is we talk about commands, and a command is when I tell you to do something, and then I'll say, and when do you do something that mom tells you or I tell you. And my
Mhm.
students go, right now. And so I call that active listening. They know that when they're being told to do something or asked to do something, it's immediate. And so it's
Mhm.
active, not just, okay, I heard you, and it kind of goes in this way and out that way. So I can specifically talk about those things. And I just wish that we had more of that in our youth sports, or that they even, I'm sure there's coaches who would love to obtain it, that there was even a place for them to obtain it rather than having
Right.
to go find these things, on their own, like I
Right.
did.
Right. Now, you also were inspired to incorporate character development into your program. Talk about that.
So my background, and I did allude to this, was teaching adults. And I knew I needed to be able to break down really complicated concepts into something that was understandable for this age group, chunk them down in a very simple way. And I had started with adults. And then when we started our martial arts school in 1996, I taught older kids and adults. But when I started kinder karate, I wanted to have a really intentional process to teach these concepts. And parents would come to me with, and I found themes. I like, obviously respect was a big one of them, and better listening skills. And I wanted to address those, like those common themes. And I had seen other places would have character programs. You would have character programs, and even in our elementary schools, they have them now. And I wanted to incorporate that process. So I started with a character sentence, and them getting to just echo the sentence. And then I expanded it into, because we have a 10-week cycle, every week we will take that character word. Like right now we're working on responsibility, and that's the sign for responsibility. And they will learn the sentence. Responsibility is owning my thoughts, my words, and my actions because they're mine. Then every week we will talk about, so 1 week we'll talk about, how do you own your actions? What does that mean? And to a 4-year-old, owning your actions means cleaning up your mess, right? If you spilled something, and as they get older, it could mean taking care of your bed, right? Owning those actions. And we even get into owning your thoughts. We talked this week about stinking thinking, and how when something happens, it's not really the event that makes you upset or mad or sad. It's, what are you thinking about it? Their beliefs about it. And so we break that down. And week by week, we work on that so that by the end of the 10 weeks, they really get it on their own level, on a simple level. And then we have a communication app called Band. And through that, I'll post videos for the parents. I like to call it a bridge to home, because it doesn't do any good if their learning just stops on the mat. Like, I'm doing this to make parents' lives easier. So again, the more involved they get, the easier it is on them as well.
Right.
We'll be right back after this. Are you a parent looking to unlock your potential in raising confident, capable, and courageous children? Well, look no further. Join us at the upcoming Parent and Purpose Summit Back to School Edition, where parenting experts from around the world will come together to share their wisdom and insights. I'm Carol Maletta, founder of the Parenting 411. This summit is your opportunity to gain essential skills and tools to become the parent you've always aspired to be. Over 5 incredible days, we'll dive deep into topics like positive discipline, effective communication, mental health, self-care, school readiness, and more. An attendee from our last summit told us, "This summit changed my parenting game. I feel more confident and connected with my children than ever before." So secure your seat at the Parent and Purpose Summit today. Visit parentandpurposesummit2023.com. That's parentandpurposesummit2023.com. And click the registration button to join us on this transformative journey. The Parent and Purpose Summit, where intentional parenting begins. And we're back with the Parenting 411.
Now, you also incorporate sign language into your program. So tell us about that, how you decided to do that, and what the and how it's benefited the program?
So sign language started out with my training in NLP. One of the things that I knew was by attaching a hand movement to a concept, it helped you to remember. It helped you to lock in that concept and even a feeling to the concept. And so I started off by making up gestures that went along with my sentences. And then after I did that for so long, I thought, well, if I'm going to do this, why not use something that's actually worthwhile, something that they could actually be learning. Just like kids, when we used to do Taekwondo and we would teach a lot of Korean, and they loved learning something that was new and different and other people didn't know. And so sign language became that kind of link to my character program. And again, I have to say a disclaimer, I am not fluent in ASL. The way that I use sign language, I'll use different websites to get the signs. And but what I am doing is we have a parent, we have a student, and they have siblings that are a part of the hearing impaired community. And so I'm going to be working with her to really shore up that sign language.
Nice.
And, yeah, but the kids love it. And I will tell you that I myself was amazed at how much they learn and they retain, because there will be signs that will, like a sign for showing will come from one word to another. And it may be 6 months ago that sign showed up, and they will still remember it. And I love things like that. So that's how it started. But it's progressing, and I'm really excited to be able to work with that particular mom and make everything I'm doing even more authentic.
Yes. I can imagine there are a lot of benefits for that. Now, considering the current educational landscape, how do you think that kinder karate can provide children with an advantage academically?
So kids who know what I call the big four, the focus, active listening, impulse control, and confidence, I feel have a better chance of success in their academic classrooms. And I've even had pre-K and kindergarten teachers come up to me and tell me that they can spot one of my kinder karate students in their classrooms. And I say, how do you see it? And so what they said to me was they're more focused, more attentive, they can sit still longer. And this is the one thing that stood out to me. They said they have this maturity that I just don't see in their classmates. And that was a real aha moment for me, because, what do we think of as maturity? And it's really just these skills that as we get older, we're able to master. But I felt, wow, okay, I'm onto something, because these skills that I'm teaching, teachers are recognizing them, and that their students are now having more success. And I look at it this way: if you're, especially boys who tend to be more kinesthetic than girls, not all, but most, if they can work that focus muscle and they can sit still just a little bit longer, or even girls, if they tend to be chatty and they can hold on to that a little bit, they're going to stay off teachers' radar. And that's always a good thing. And of course, the increased focus and attention span, they're going to retain more as well. And so I'm just a big proponent of the earlier that you can start training these parts of the brain. Wow, how much does that 1%? Yeah, like compound interest, right? How much can that help them later? So
now I want to leave space for you to tell us about your passion project, about helping moms of teen daughters reconnect, and talk a little bit about how it aligns with your work at KinderCare.
So in kinder karate, it was all about the brain and learning and development. And so my passion project came along because of my own daughter, who she's now 19. But we had a really, really tight bond. I actually homeschooled her and her older brother for a few years. And so we spent even more time together than most. and we had a great relationship. And then she turned 11 and all these changes started happening. And it's not that anything bad happened. Thank God she didn't go down a wrong path or get into any kind of trouble. But in those years, for about 6 years, it was just a lot of, I couldn't do anything right. I couldn't say anything right. We would argue. And I'm just like, what am I doing? And I tried to look for help online and I just couldn't. I could find a couple books, but there wasn't anything really action oriented to me. And when I would ask other moms or anybody and say, what do you have any advice for me? What's going on? And they would say, oh, it's normal. Just wait it out. She'll come back to you. And that's just not me. That's not me to wait it out. And so I thought, well, this is what I do, right? Brain training, brain development. Let me get at it. And in my research, it's eye-opening because it's not complicated, but it's not easy, right? But so, for instance, the myth that we've been fed is that teenagers want to separate from us. Your daughter wants to separate from you. She can't get far enough away from you in order to kind of go through her cocoon from caterpillar to butterfly. When the reality of it is, she doesn't want to separate. And her biggest fear, through my research that I found, teenage daughters' biggest fears is abandonment. They fear that if they grow up, they're gonna lose the love that they had as children. They go through a process that's called individuation, and that's learning their own identity. And the thing is, the most important part of that individuation for daughters is mom, and they can't do it without her. So I thought, if moms play such a big role in this, then we can't stay uninformed. We've got to educate ourselves on not only what could we be doing wrong that's like stalling this process or hurting the process, but even better, what could we be doing right so that we maintain, I say, rebuild the connection, and then we maintain and we strengthen that bond into her adulthood. Because ultimately, my whole program I'm building is about moving from power to influence. Right now, when they're young, we have all the power. Then they go through their teenage years. If you don't learn to give up your power and let them peacefully transition of power,
that's right.
You have problems later, because eventually they're going to have all the power. And if they have to take it from you, then you have no influence. And that's really what I want to maintain, is that we as moms maintain our position of influence with our daughters, even when she's surrounded by her peers and media and school. We're still that influential part of her life that she looks to us for advice and all of those good things. So that's what I've been working on, and I'm really excited about it. I just can't wait. I know it's going to be as helpful to moms as the things that I have done with the young age group, and I'm just really excited to get those changes for the moms, because there's no need for us to be in pain for 5, 6, 7 years. Right.
And it's important for parents to play that role, to really be a beacon in their children's lives. I mean, obviously during the teen years, their social lives and their peers certainly play a very big role, and it can feel like they're crowding us out. But they really do count on us to be that bright light, to get them back on course if we make that effort. And like you said, not decide, well, this is what I heard, this is the way I heard it is, I'm just going to wait until she turns 18 and comes back to me. Like, that's, if you're not in there, I'm making that effort, they may not want to come back. I mean, because they're going to take that, they're going to interpret that as you not caring.
Exactly. We all know a mother-daughter pair that either doesn't have a relationship or has that frosty relationship. We've all seen that, or all know somebody like that. And it's just, it's not necessary.
Right.
It just doesn't have to happen. And sometimes that can happen and moms are like, I don't even know what happened, right? So
Right.
I want to give moms the tools to be able to understand better and then really be proactive instead of reactive, right? And when it's too late. So be proactive in their daughters' lives. And I'm proud to say and happy to say that my daughter and I have an amazing relationship now. And she's like, I was your guinea pig. And I said, I know. But even her friends, when right at the time she graduated high school, we have a back porch that's kind of the meeting spot for everybody. And she would bring her friends to me and say, Mom, they're having this problem. They need your help. What would you say to them? And I thought, oh, okay. So she's looking at me in a different light, right? Mom knows something. And so that was really a great moment. And, she's college age today, but we're doing great.
Well, what you have in mind really is very much needed. I can't wait to see how it all unfolds. In the meantime, how can we follow you in your work?
Okay, so for Kinder Karate, my website is www.kinderkarateclasses.com. You can find me on YouTube at youtube.com/@kinderkarate. And then Facebook is another good one, facebook.com/kinderkaratepittsburgh. And Instagram is instagram.com/kinder_karate. Sometimes you don't get there quick enough and somebody takes the regular handle. For moms of teen daughters, I just created a group to get started with, and that's facebook.com/groups/moms of teen daughters. So they can go there for more information. And thank you so much for allowing me to get that information out there.
Well, I certainly was glad to have you, and it sounds like everyone just needs to follow Kinder Karate on all the major social media platforms. I think you have a wonderful program, and it's great to start when children are younger. They're having fun, but they also are learning some skills that they'll be able to tap into later in life. And so that's wonderful. It's really, you really can't start pouring in those important values and skills into your children, albeit in an age appropriate way. And it sounds like you're certainly doing that at Kinder Karate. So thank you again for joining. And for our listeners, as always, thank you for joining us. Be sure to follow Kinder Karate. Continue to follow the Parenting 411 on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And by all means, if you'd like to replay this interview, perhaps you'd like to watch the video and see us having this conversation, you can head on over to the YouTube channel. Of course, it's the Parenting 411. And I want to encourage you again to pick up a free copy. If you already have your own, you can get one for a friend, but free copy of my mini motherhood memoir, Mother's Work, Pearls of Wisdom and Gems from My Journey. You can head on over to mothersworkthebook.com, grab your copy. Not only will you get the book, but also some other goodies like the Do You Hear Me? Staying Connected in the Chaos webinar, along with the companion workbook. And just stay part of the Parenting 411 community. We have a lot of great things coming down the road for you. And remember that it is never too late to be the parent that you want to be. Thanks for listening. Can't wait to talk to you next time.